Hello everyone. Today I'm going to continue talking about the textual metafunction and in particular give some more detail about types of theme, which are named, as you see here, topical themes, textual themes, and interpersonal themes. So first I will remind you briefly about what a theme is and how to identify one for 6 slides. So if you don't need a refresher on the basics of theme in the textual metafunction, skip ahead until you see that it says slide number 7 in the bottom corner there. So a refresher, right? The theme is the first element of the clause. So in these examples, the theme is underlined. The first, number 1 here, is declarative. The theme is the first word here, which is this. That's the subject as well here. The second one is an interrogative. The theme is underlined. It's a question word. And the third one is an imperative, and the theme is the imperative verb. Those are all what we call unmarked themes, right? Those are all the most common form for each of those moods. For the declarative number 1, it's common, usual, normal, because it starts with the subject, this, right? So an unmarked declarative starts with the subject, and similar for the other two, an unmarked interrogative starts with the question word, who, what, where, when, why, or if it's a yes-no question, it starts with the finite and the subject, can you, do you, has she, will they, and so on. And for imperatives, the unmarked form is when it starts with the imperative verb, print, right? Do this, come here, look at that, and so on. Those would all be unmarked. The theme is always what comes first, and it provides some link to earlier in the text. You will have seen an example like this, where if we look at each sentence and look just at the themes of the main clauses, you see what comes first in each sentence is this, the bits that are in red, right? The first element, an adverb phrase in the case of the first one, right? And so on through it. The actual name doesn't matter here. What matters is the first element, and we've discussed element before, right? So the first element of each, and you see here that sometimes the first element is the subject, as in the previous example with this was Bono's, right? But in these, what we have in front of us here, the first element is not the subject in the case of the first 3 sentences, right? The night before Easter Sunday, 1920 is the theme, but the subject comes after that, it's underlined, and the same for the second sentence and the third sentence. It's only for the fourth sentence, it was a way of determining, where we see that the theme, it, remember the theme is it comes first, is also the subject, and here it is the subject, and it comes first. So it in the fourth sentence is an unmarked theme. All the rest are marked. How are they marked? What type of information appears in most of these themes? As you can see, it's time information, right? The night before, when he woke again about 6, the next night at 3 a.m. So this author has chosen to use marked themes to highlight, to put focus on, to make prominent the time information. That's what happens with marked themes. The author or speaker chooses to put certain information at the start of the sentence to make it more prominent. Okay, that's where we were up until now. What are these 3 types of theme? I didn't use, so far I've only said theme, I didn't use the word topical theme, but up until now, every time I've said theme, I could have said topical theme. What this means is, as you'd guess from the name, a theme that mentions a topic that's previously appeared in the text, right? So when you hear this example, I was born in Ottawa. Ottawa is the capital city of Canada. You'd probably say something like the second sentence feels connected, or the second sentence seems to flow from the first. People use words like that. And yes, certainly does, because the theme of the theme of the second sentence is Ottawa, and that topic, Ottawa, has been mentioned in the first sentence. It's thus no surprise that you see the connection, right? I was born in Ottawa. Ottawa is, it's connected through the theme Ottawa, which links up to the previous sentence. Remember, it doesn't have to be just the previous sentence. It could be earlier in the text, further back than that. we're looking at simple examples here for now. Similarly here, right, parts of northern Britain were brought to a standstill by heavy snow and ice. Scotland was worst hit. You reach the second sentence, Scotland, the theme Scotland links to the earlier part of the text because Scotland is part of northern Britain, right? Scotland is a maronym of northern Britain. It's part of northern Britain. So you see the logical connection. You see that the theme connects to what came earlier. That's a little more complex, right? The example number 1, Ottawa just repeats the exact word. Example number 2, Scotland repeats an idea that's first brought up, right? Northern Britain, of which Scotland is one part, but without being so simplistic as to just repeat the same word. Good. These are still unmarked themes because in both cases, Ottawa and Scotland are the subject, right? They're the subject and the theme. You could then call them, you could say these are unmarked topical themes, right? Okay, good. So the topical theme is reasonably simple. It's just a mention of the topic. How do we account for other examples like we see here? Imagine you have this first sentence, both teams played well. The red team won the game. Here we have the second sentence, the red team won the game, has the topical theme, the red team. So the first sentence says both teams, then the second sentence says the red team, right? The first element there is that noun phrase, the red team. Team is mentioned again. It's not hard to see the connection to the previous sentence. Both teams played well. The red team, as soon as you hear team, you go, oh, team connects to team. There's a nice link there. This text seems to be coherent. I'll just keep listening or just keep reading. You don't get lost with the understanding the thematic development, right? How does that compare to other examples, though, where you might say something like, however, the red team won the game? Or you might say something like, happily, the red team won the game. What we have in number 2 and 3 here, now remember, you're to be reading these as not 1, 2, 3 in order, but as if both teams played well, the red team won the game, or both teams played well, however, the red team won the game, and so on, right? So it's 1, 2, and 3 are 3 possibilities of what could follow the first sentence, both teams played well. How do we describe what's going on if we'd used sentence number 2 or 3? In all cases here, you do eventually reach the topical theme, right? Number 1, the topical theme comes first. The topic is mentioned immediately. Both teams played well. The red team, there's team, the topic is mentioned. In sentence number 2 and 3, the topical theme does appear, right? Both of them also contain the red team. What we need to describe in example 2 and in example 3 is what to name the thing that comes before that. In the case of number 2, it's the word however. In the case of number 3, it's the word happily. There are 2 options here, right? Eventually, you must reach a topical theme. Otherwise, there would be no connection in content to what came before, and people would begin to get confused. It's not to say that they couldn't figure it out. It's not to say that we don't make mistakes. It's not to say that there's sometimes bad writing which develops the theme poorly. But what happens most of the time is that even if there is something else before, such as however or happily, eventually we reach the topical theme, the red team, or some other topical theme, some connection to the first sentence, right? And notice that if you wanted, you could have 2 and 3 together. You could say both teams played well. Happily, however, the red team won the game. So there can be both, right? We're looking at them one at a time, and I'll name them in a second. I haven't yet. But eventually you have to reach a topical theme. Then the full theme is complete. The full theme is only complete once you reach the end of the topical theme. What do we name the things in number 2 and 3? However and happily, right? How do we name these? Okay, so you already know the red team is the topical theme. However is called the textual theme, right? Now this is getting perhaps a bit complicated in nomenclature, the names of the terms, because we're talking about the textual metafunction. How are texts organized? And now we're saying that there can be a textual theme. The textual theme is a word like however that provides a link through this is where it gets simple again, though. It provides a link through a conjunction, right? A one-word conjunction like this. It can be a multi-word conjunction like as a result, right? Which really as a result is just a way of saying so, right? However, could be replaced by other conjunctions, excuse me for a minute, other adversative conjunctions, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a short one or a long one. A textual theme is a textual theme is a conjunction which shows some sort of connection between the first sentence, both teams played well, and the second sentence, the red team won the game. And it shows you how the author wants you to see those as connected, right? The author could just say both teams played well, the red team won the game. But with example 2, the author has chosen to say or write, however, the red team won the game, which shows you that adversative link, right? That, remember, an adversative conjunction is one where that shows a relation of something unusual, something slightly surprising, something unexpected, right? Here, what's the unexpected element? Well, both teams played well. Great, they're both doing well. But on the other hand, right, however, you could say on the other hand, or other adversative conjunctions, both teams played well, only one team won. There's the adversity. You do well, you still lose, right? Whichever color the other team was, let's say blue, right? For the blue team, the adversity was they played well, they lost. So the textual theme is that, right? Words that show some sort of clause relation through a conjunction. And by now, I think you know the 4 types of conjunctions, or you can watch the other video or look back at your notes, right? Additive, adversative, causal, and temporal, right? Additive and adversative, but causal, so, temporal, then. Those are the 4 possibilities for textual themes, conjunctions. Finally, we have in number 3, how would you describe happily? This is an interpersonal theme. An interpersonal theme is one that's placed at the start and allows the speaker or writer to comment on how she or he, how they feel about the information to follow, right? Interpersonal. I'm talking from my person to your person. One of the things I can do is I can provide, I don't just have to provide facts, right? These are facts. Both teams played well, or okay, both teams played well might be a bit of an opinion because you may not agree, right? But let's say both are declaratives, right? You have a declarative, both teams played well. I'm declaring something. I'm also declaring the red team won the game. When I add in happily as the interpersonal theme there, I'm telling you how I feel about clause number 3, the red team won the game. Happily, the red team won the game, right? It's an addition of a theme that tells you how I feel about the red team winning the game. That's an interpersonal theme. It tells you how I feel. There's a couple of other possibilities you'll see in a minute, but that's the main thing, right? That it tells you something about how I'm addressing you or how I'm writing to you. I'm writing to you. In this case, my person is writing to you with happiness. We'll see a couple more examples in a second. Those are the 3 possibilities. The topical theme is the one that you've discussed in previous weeks, right? Where the content is mentioned again. The textual theme provides a conjunctive link between the 2 clauses, one of adversity, addition, time, or cause. The interpersonal theme allows that expression of how I'm addressing you as my reader or my listener. Here is that written form. You can pause here if you'd like to write that down, if you'd like to take notes. I won't read it again. So more textual themes, right? Remember, textual themes, I've jumped over topical theme because that's the simple one that we've talked about in the past, right? A sentence that starts with when he saw her smile. You have the when part that tells you that there's a time connection to some other element, right? That's the textual theme. He is the topical theme. He would be the connection to whoever he is must have appeared before, right? Who's he? That connects to the content that he has been named at some earlier point in the text. So how would you describe, you would say then that in this sentence, the theme is when he. When is the textual theme, he is the topical theme. And so we came to the end, right? You have two textual themes here and the additive conjunction, so the causal conjunction. Finally, you get to the topical theme, we. Who is we? In order for this text to have made sense, we must assume that we has been defined earlier in the text, right? That it's been said or written earlier, and that he can be understood through anaphoric reference. But no one was there. I think you can do this yourself now, right? If I asked you to underline the full theme, what would you underline? You can pause and think about it, right? And then I'm going to ask you what's the textual and what's the topical. If I asked you to underline the full theme, you would underline but no one. If I asked you to underline the textual theme, you would underline the adversative conjunction but, which here is functioning as the textual theme. And if I asked you to underline the topical theme, you would underline no one. And one last one, which you can do yourself, pause if you want, and I don't even need to comment on it. You can just pause and then advance to see the answer. Other examples of interpersonal themes. Interpersonal themes are those where I use the theme to somehow address you in some manner, right? As we saw earlier, I can address you happily. Other ways that this is done, if you look at something like, can you please be quiet? Nurse, pick up line 1, please. And, oh, sorry. I apologize, I'll back up. Can you please be quiet? What do we have here? Can you is, in this case, can you is an interpersonal theme. How is my person addressing you? You have to see this as being an interpersonal theme, what you have to do is imagine that the most common mood in language, written or spoken, the most common mood is declarative, right? When I declare something. A declarative that might be similar to this would be, they are being quiet, right? I'm just telling you something. They are being quiet. That's the most common mood. It becomes an interpersonal theme when I choose to use one of the less common moods, interrogative or imperative. So can you is an interpersonal theme. This theme here, the can you, immediately tells you, the listener or reader, that I'm asking you something. So questions, the question word, or as in the case of what, or here the finite and the subject in a yes-no question, the question word is the interpersonal theme. That's the part that I use, the question word or the can you, do they, have we, shall she, and so on. That's the part I use to show that I am addressing my person to your person. I am addressing you with a question. The other option for an interpersonal theme, so you saw before, happily, right? How am I addressing you happily? An adverb that tells you how I feel. Here, an interpersonal theme is the question form. Can you is the interpersonal theme. And the final one is when you use a vocative, right? When you use a word that names the person, which could be as simple as using their name, or as in this case, a title. When you use a vocative to address someone, it shows to whom to whom the clause is being directed, right? When I say, nurse, pick up line 1, pick up, right? Pick up is the topical theme. What's the topic of this clause? Picking up, answering the phone, right? That's the topical theme, pick up, that imperative. But I've chosen to move something else to the front, nurse, in order to tell you to whom this clause is directed at. Again, think of interpersonal, right? From my person to your person, but which person specifically? Nurse. So nurse here is a vocative. In this clause, therefore, number 2, nurse, the theme is nurse, pick up. Nurse is the interpersonal theme, pick up is the topical theme. Just to be clear, because I understand from experience, not everyone knows the word vocative. nurse in nurse pick up line 1, please. That's a vocative. You're using nurse, the word nurse, to name the person, to call them, to address them. In the sentence, the nurse is coming now, right? Where's the nurse? Oh, the nurse is coming now. That's not a vocative. There you're using the word nurse to talk about the nurse, right? If you're using the word to talk about the person, it's not a vocative. It's only a vocative when you're using it to address the person, to talk to them, right? So you could think about this between these two here, Abby, which one is the vocative and which one isn't, right? And when you say, what do you think, Abby? Abby's being used as a vocative there. You're saying, Abby, I'm talking to you. Whereas in the second one, do you think Abby is coming? There we're using Abby to talk about her, right? So that's what vocative means. When you use a word to address someone, to direct something at them, as in the case of nurse pick up line 1, you're using nurse as a vocative, as an interpersonal theme to direct the rest of the clause, beginning with the imperative pick up, at that nurse, at her or him. Can you look at number 3 and determine, now you've seen an example similar to number 3 already, right? It pretty much mimics the red team one. What is the theme here overall, right? What would you underline to underline the full theme? What would you name the 2 separate elements of this theme? Pause for a second, right? Use the language that we've just talked about to describe the theme of sentence number 3. And presumably you would see that thankfully is an interpersonal theme. It tells us how the author feels about Goldilocks' escape. And whereas Goldilocks would be the topical theme, the connection to earlier topic, the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears, she must have been mentioned earlier on in order for this to have some logical connection to what came earlier. I believe the answer is 4. Can you do it with this one? Think for a minute about about everything, but I mean, notice the top of this page says interpersonal theme. So what's the interpersonal theme here? And what is the topical theme? And at this point, you should be, now that you've paused and thought about it, you should see that the I believe is the interpersonal theme. It tells you, the listener, I want to address you, but I want to make it clear to you that I'm not quite sure. So I add in that extra bit, right? If you asked me what's 2 plus 2, I could say the answer is 4. The answer would be the topical theme. The answer connects to the topic, right? The topic is math. The topic is this question, right? What's 2 plus 2? The answer is 4. Topical theme is the answer. I believe I can add that on the start to direct your attention to the fact that I'm addressing you with some hesitancy, right? So I believe would be the modalization, the not sure part of that. I believe is the interpersonal theme. The answer is the textual theme. I'm going to have to pause here for a second just to turn something off that's making noise that maybe you can't hear. Stick with me. I lied for a second there when I said that something was making noise. In fact, it was something making noise. It was my daughter's gerbils that were making noise. They were cheeping and running around. I had to get rid of them. I had to move them from the room, not get rid of them. Anyway, let's look at one more complex example. That'll be all, and then we can practice some when we meet. What we have here is a group of 4 children talking. Sibylla says, let's swim with Tilly tomorrow. Macy says, she is going to be away. Here we have a reasonably simple theme. She, you can see that she is a topical theme because she mentions one of the words that was said earlier, or not mentioned it directly, but you know that she is a personal reference. It anaphorically refers back to Tilly, right? So you hear Macy say she is going to be away, and you know, this is connected because she means Tilly, and it's fine, right? You don't get confused about why Macy said that. We only have the topical theme. Sorry, I skipped ahead a bit quick, but we only have the topical theme. Macy could do something more complex. We do things more complex than that all the time. Here's an example, right? Sibylla says, let's swim with Tilly tomorrow. Macy says, but Sibylla, I think she's going to be away. Pause here and take some time to think about what themes has she used. more than one, obviously, in fact, more than one of one type, right? There must be a topical theme. So you know you can stop when you reach the topical theme, but you have to account for everything before that as either being a textual theme or an interpersonal theme. Stop here, underline the words. I'll break it up for you. But, Sibylla, and I think all must be accounted for before you reach the word she, which is the topical theme, as in the previous example. Pause and label them as you can. So, how does Macy connect her clause to what came before? First, she says but, which is a textual theme, right? It's an adversative conjunction. She says but, which immediately tells the listeners something about what I say next is going to have an adverse relationship to something you said. There's going to be some element. We don't know which one yet. Is it something about the swimming? Is it something about the let's, right? Sibylla says let's. Macy might say, but I can't, right? But I can't. Let's, I, adversity, right? Because let's mean that you including me, and immediately saying but tells you there's going to be some problem. So it could be many things. What it is, in fact, in this case is not that. But as we progress, we'll see what it is, right? But the point I'm making is as soon as you hear but, you know that what's going to follow will have some sort of adversity. You don't know adverse to what yet, to tomorrow, to Tilly, to swim, you don't know. But tells you there's some adversity coming up. Sibylla is an interpersonal theme. To whom is Macy talking? There's 4 people. She's not talking to all of them. She's talking to Sibylla, right? It doesn't mean, of course, that the others can't answer if they choose to, but it does tell us which one of them Macy is choosing to address primarily. So there's an interpersonal theme, Sibylla. Then we have I think, which is another interpersonal theme, but with a different purpose, right? I think tells the listeners what's coming next may not be true, right? My person doesn't want to lie to your person. My person doesn't want to mislead your person. So I use modality to mark this as tentative, right? I use this I think here as a metaphor, not to really talk about my thinking process, but rather as it's a metaphor because this I think just means maybe, right? You realize Macy is saying, but Sibylla, maybe she's going to be away. So Macy starts talking, doesn't reach the topical theme until she says she, but prior to that, she's already thematized the clause to follow in 3 different ways. But, something adverse coming up. Sibylla, I'm talking to you. I think what I say may not be true. She, at that point, we have the topical theme where we know that there's a content connection to what came before. The rest of it, after the rest of it is going to be away. That part is, we don't need to think about it when we're talking about thematic development, right? You can see that here. You've got the theme in red. Let's swim with Tilly tomorrow. Macy might say, but Sibylla, I think she doesn't know how to swim. The theme is in red. The rheme is the new information. The rheme, we don't care about it, right? I mean, rheme means everything but the theme. But when you're talking about how the theme works, you can just say the rheme, just forget about it, right? But what to notice is that the theme has the connections, the links, right? As just discussed, the rheme is where anything can appear that fits with that theme. The new information, right? You'll remember from the earlier lecture where I said theme contains old information. The connections are made in the theme. Rhemes are where the new information appears. What is it that Macy actually wants to say? It may be A, doesn't know how to swim. It may be B, she doesn't want to. It may be C, she needs a new swim costume, right? New information in the rheme. So that's the end of this discussion of topical, interpersonal, and textual themes. We will try some examples together when we next meet. Thank you. Bye. Oops.